Hello and welcome to the Ruslan Belov channel. Today we will discuss the situation in Ukraine as of June 30th, 2025. A large number of significant developments took place today, so let's get started. And just to jump ahead a bit, it seems that on certain parts of the front, the Russian army has managed to break through Ukrainian defenses quite seriously. And that's not just a figure of speech when we talk about advances toward one or another settlement. There is, in fact, one direction where what appears to be an operational crisis is forming. For the Ukrainian armed forces, of course. But let's go in order. First, we move to the Kupansk area of the front. Over the past 24 hours, there haven't been any particularly noteworthy updates. Russian aviation and drones are actively operating. Strikes are being delivered regularly on the town of Kupansk, primarily in its northwestern part, precisely in the area where Russian units seem to be gradually advancing. There are no major updates or map adjustments. The same applies to the Lyman direction. No significant news in the past day. Somewhat more interesting footage and reports are beginning to come in from the Siversk sector. Today, information has emerged about the advancement of Russian troops. Let me remind you that this data was already published several days ago by certain pro-Russian analysts who reported localized breakthroughs near the settlements of Serebryanka and slightly southwest of Verkhnyokamyanske. Today, this information has also been compiled and confirmed by independent pro-Western and neutral experts. Let's take a look at how the map has been updated. The information about the progress near Serebryanka and the reservoir west of Verkhnyokamyanske, first released yesterday by pro-Russian sources, has now been confirmed by Western expert mapping as well. So based on all of this, we can make certain conclusions. From this footage and the current battlefield layout, we can see that the Russian army is gradually seizing the initiative from the Ukrainian side. It seems Russia has either reached a turning point in this area or is about to. A push towards Siversk itself is now gradually forming. In Serebryanka, at least 40% of the settlement is reportedly under Russian control. However, Ukrainian forces continue launching counterattacks from the north, directly from the forested area nearby, which is slowing Russian progress. Currently, due to the growing pressure on Serebryanka, hostilities have intensified in the Serebryanka forest itself. We're seeing widespread use of the Sontsepiok thermobaric flamethrower systems. Possibly as a diversion and to tie down Ukrainian units, Russian forces might begin a broader offensive here as well. Next, we move to Verkhnyokamyanske. Russian forces are advancing west of this settlement. If we calculate the distance, according to some sources, the gap between Russia's forward positions and the outskirts of Siversk is now roughly 1.5 kilometers, which is virtually nothing. Moreover, based on this layout, it's clear that one of the supply routes used to sustain the Ukrainian garrison in Serebryanka has most likely already been physically cut off. Ukrainian sources themselves report that reconnaissance footage suggests Russian special forces and scout saboteur groups are already entering the eastern part of Siversk. This indicates that the far northeastern section of the city is no longer fully under Ukrainian control. It is most likely a grey zone. If this is confirmed, we should soon expect to see more reconnaissance footage and perhaps even the beginning of a full-scale assault on Siversk. Things are likely to get very heated here shortly. Now we move to the Constantinivka direction. The main fighting is taking place near the Kleban reservoir and along the N32 highway. Over the past 24 hours, Ukrainian forces have attempted a series of counterattacks from the direction of Konstantinivka through Yablunivka toward Oleksandr Kaliniv. The goal of these counterattacks was to break the encirclement that is currently closing tightly around the pocket south of the Kleban reservoir, both from the east and the west. It seems Ukraine aimed to relieve pressure on the western flank. However, based on available drone footage, all of the Ukrainian counterattacks were repelled, and Russian forces retained their positions in Oleksandr Kaliniv. Fighting continues here, but it appears that movement along the N20 highway and from direction 0524 is no longer possible. At the same time, we see intense fire control along the 0522 road, which runs from Katerinivka through Kleban-Bek, Sherbinivka and Novospassky, north toward Konstantinivka. In the footage, we can see how Ukrainian forces are trying to evacuate, rotate units, transport personnel, and remove the wounded. But all of this is extremely difficult and comes with heavy losses, even though the encirclement is large, and perhaps that's why it hasn't yet been formally declared a cauldron or full encirclement. It's clear that the situation is extremely critical and that Ukraine is suffering significant losses here. Meanwhile, the Russian army continues advancing along the N32 road toward Constantinivka. Today, based on Ukrainian drone footage, we highlighted some map areas. Ukrainian troops from the 36th Marine Brigade are seen dropping explosives and grenades on Russian positions as they slowly push forward through trenches and fortified positions. One such position was geolocated and marked. We can see that Russian troops are moving towards Stepanivka, which is essentially a suburb of Constantinivka. However, the battle for the area is far from over. The Ukrainian side is throwing all available resources and reserves into holding Yablunivka. This is a very intense confrontation. Next, we move to the N32 highway, or rather what Syrski refers to as the Dobropilia direction. Today, the map underwent significant changes. Still, despite the claims of pro-Russian sources, the actual adjustments are modest. Over the last few days, it has been repeatedly stated that the Russian army has entrenched itself in the northeastern part of Novoekonomichin. Most mappers are still reluctant to reflect this, but some pro-Russian mapping platforms have already updated their maps accordingly. At a minimum, there is evidence of an expanding Russian control zone around Hrodivka. According to both neutral and pro-Russian sources, several strongpoints have come under Russian control today. One of these strongpoints is now firmly held by Russian forces, and the army has also advanced along the forest belt north of Hrodivka. Based on these adjustments, the Russian army is now focused on clearing and semi-encircling a small strongpoint shaped like a butterfly, located between Hrodivka and Promin. In summary, the Russian army appears intent on expanding its control, clearing forested areas, and advancing towards settlements such as Promin and Kazatska, as well as flanking Novoekonomicne and Mykolaiivka from the south. Today, several pro-Russian and neutral mappers also reported that Russian forces have advanced west of Miran and have essentially reached the eastern outskirts of the settlement of Novoekonomichne. A small stronghold has come under the control of Russian units, and based on this advance, the distance to the bridge and the beginning of Novoekonomichne is now just under 1.5 kilometers. Russian forces have also been reported advancing in the area of Koptiev and Shevchenko 1. This has resulted in significant map updates. This is how the map looked just yesterday, by the end of June 29th. Already yesterday, pro-Russian analysts noted an incursion into the Razino area and the northeastern part of Novoekonomichne. Today, partial confirmation of this advance has emerged, suggesting that it could potentially represent a wide and significant breakthrough. If the information is confirmed that Russian forces have entered the northeastern part of Novoekonomichne, the eastern part of Razino, and the central area of Novotoretske, then we are not just talking about an improvement in forward positions, as the Russian Ministry of Defense likes to phrase it, but about a full-scale collapse of the northeastern defensive line of the entire Pokrovsk agglomeration. From the red-marked line on the map, this essentially implies a semi-encirclement of Pokrovsk, full fire control, and UAV coverage over the remaining supply routes. In other words, it indicates the beginning of combat operations for Pokrovsk and its surrounding urban cluster. Given the configuration of forces, the battle is unlikely to last long. Holding Pokrovsk, along with Minohrad, Rodinske, Hryshine, and other settlements in the Pokrovsk agglomeration, will either be impossible or come at an extremely high cost. Additionally, there are reports today of the beginning of assault operations in the southern and southwestern parts of Pokrovsk. Some experts, including pro-Russian ones, report the clearing of a settlement named Zverova. This village lies in the southwest and provides access to Reservoir Number 5, Reservoir Number 4, and the Shevchenko mine. Notable progress has also been reported in the areas of Vidrogenia and Shevchenko, with the control zone expanding along the railway line toward Ukrainka and Chinoshin. If confirmed, this would indicate an effort to reach the southern and southeastern outskirts of Pokrovsk and potentially semi-encircle a network of fortified positions located along the M30 highway in a butterfly-shaped configuration. We're likely seeing an attempt to align the front line along the settlements of Lysivka, Dakinska, Zelena, and Nova Ukrainka. These are serious advances, but it's important to remember that there are currently no geolocated confirmations. All these movements are being reported by pro-Russian and neutral mappers, mostly based on open-source posts and statements. So for now, no official map updates are being made, as we wait for geolocation data. Still, judging by the overall trends in this and adjacent sectors, this information may well be close to reality. Today, further advances and attempts to expand the control zone have been noted around Novosergivka and Novomykolivka. In the case of Novomykolivka, drone footage has been published showing the Russian flag raised on the northern edge of the settlement. Despite this footage, no map updates have been made because the Russian Ministry of Defense already claimed full control of Novosilna and Novomykolivka days or even weeks ago. However, it now seems that at the time of the MOD's announcement, the last street, Zareknaya Street, was either in a grey zone or under Ukrainian control. Today's footage suggests the entire settlement has now been cleared. This is significant because over the past several days, Russian forces have repeatedly tried to advance north toward Molodetska and Udachny. Intense fighting is ongoing for both settlements, and it seems the offensive potential in this area was exhausted due to a fortified butterfly-shaped strongpoint located between Novomykolivka and the key offensive routes. It now appears that clearing this stronghold has become a priority in order to enable further northern movement. That stronghold south of Molodetska now appears to be semi-encircled. Supply routes and garrison support for Ukrainian forces inside may already be fully cut off. Once the front line stabilizes, this area will serve as a crucial bridgehead on the Ukrainian side of the Solona River, allowing Russian forces to continue pushing northward toward Molodetske and Novopodhorodne, right up to the railway line, where Ukraine is likely organizing its next line of defense. Next, we move to the Novopavlivka and Dnipropetrovsk directions. It is from here that reports are coming indicating an operational crisis and collapse of the front line. After Ukraine lost control of Alexiivka, Bohatyr, Otradna, and Kamar, Russian forces quickly cleared out the settlements of Zaporizhzhia, Yalta, and Zirka. Today's updates include not just geolocations or corrections, but a massive influx of information from this pocket. Note the number of map markers and icons. They speak to the very high intensity of combat. Some very interesting map changes have emerged, so let's go over them in more detail. We'll start from north to south. First, there is confirmation, albeit partial, from pro-Ukrainian cartographers of a breakthrough by Russian forces in this direction. Even though a dozen videos were published yesterday showing Russian troops raising flags in various parts of Zirka, the settlement is still listed in the grey zone. But the most important and interesting update today from pro-Ukrainian sources is the expansion of the grey zone from the village of Zoria, or Zorka, toward Podubna. About 33% of Podubna is now marked as grey zone. According to Ukrainian cartographers, the central part of the settlement is now contested. This suggests that Russian special forces crossed the Mokry Yali River and managed to enter and hold central Podubna. Ukrainian troops are now actively counterattacking in an attempt to regain control of the center. This is a fierce battle, as control over this town is key to defending Merna. Right now, Merna is effectively cut off from the rest of Ukraine, as most supply routes ran through Podubna. Both sides are inflicting heavy fire damage. The battle here may last several more days, at least until Russian troops can move into Merna itself. Some mappers are already updating their maps to reflect Russian advances toward the outskirts of Merna, taking control of forest belts east and southeast of the town. There is speculation that as early as the night between June 30th and July 1st, Russian troops may attempt to storm the town. The goal is to advance quickly to the southern outskirts of Podubny and link up with Russian units currently fighting an uneven battle in the town's center. This operational crisis stems from these seemingly small breakthroughs, but it doesn't end there. Here's another map update from pro-Ukrainian sources showing that Russian units have also pushed toward Voskresenka along the main road between Shevchenko and Voskresenka, possibly establishing a foothold on the southern farms and barracks. Voskresenka itself is under constant artillery fire to prevent Ukrainian reinforcements or stabilization of the front. Fighting is now underway there as well. Russian forces may have taken positions on the southern farms. This is according to pro-Ukrainian mappers. Simultaneously, the regular Russian army is advancing from the direction of Fedorivka. Several map corrections by pro-Russian and neutral cartographers indicate a localized breakthrough. To summarize all of today's information, in the next 24 hours, towns like Pavlivka, Voskresenka, and later Myrna and Podubna may fall under Russian control, possibly very quickly. Russian forces are also actively targeting bridges and supply lines in the area. We can already observe damage to the bridge at Andriivka-Klevtsova. While the bridge is not completely destroyed, it has been damaged. It's likely we'll see more footage soon showing further strikes. The goal is to render the bridge inoperable, or at least slow down Ukrainian logistics over it. And that's all for today, dear friends. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, hit the like button, and take care.